to 10:30, and you can just man the war room till then, and then we'll bring you in for some gambling talk. So,
proceed, sir.
Pardon me?
I said,
what'd you say, Rick?
Sir. Proceed. Sounds great.
Oh, proceed.
Carry on.
I thought you said something about seed. I'm like, what's he talking about his seed for? Come on, let's go. Well, this is Bump Day. Ed Carpenter, Matthew-Embury is out at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We're going to be joining up with him right after the broadcast today. This is our Bump Day special. We just talked about Ed Carpenter a little bit, but let's go into more detail. Ed Carpenter, the owner, the boss, and very well might be feeling the pain. Go ahead, buddy.
He has the fastest car, but is he going to get the weather that's going to allow him a chance to go for the top 9? And he drew, like we said, his son Ryder drew pill number 70. There are 70 cars here. That means he will be the last one out in the initial draw. And if temperatures continue to increase like it's feeling like it's doing right now, I just don't think Ed Carpenter, even though he is the best of the ECR cars, has a chance to make the top 9 if he only gets one chance.
Let's talk a little bit about the other Ed Carpenter. We've talked about Danica. We've talked about Ed Carpenter. Let's talk about Spencer Pigot.
Yeah, Spencer Pigot's the big difference. He got the favorable draw. He's going to be one of the first 6 cars to go out, and I think we will get the clear picture of what Ed Carpenter would have been able to do if he had the early draw. I think right now, call me crazy, but I think the best chance right now for ECR to get a car in the top 9 is either Pigot or Danica. It's not Ed Carpenter because of that draw. It's crazy how just pulling a little chip out of a milk bottle can ruin your weekend, and it did for Mr. Carpenter.
Absolutely. Traditions, man. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? So we move on to another fan favorite with Team Penske, and that is Simon Pattison. Simon Pattison, I've had a chance to watch his stable this week, and I know they've been hard at it. They've had some good speeds, certainly some good speeds earlier on in the week. I think we can see a Fast 9 with Simon Pattison.
Love to see him get on pole. I think it's been, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if Rick's got the record in front of him, but I believe a Menard car or a Menard-sponsored or entered car has not won the pole here since the year 2000 when Greg Ray did it. So that would be, obviously, John Menard with a lot of history, having run his own cars here in the past and being a sponsor for many years. A very popular personality here as well. So it'd be, I think, pretty awesome to see Mr. Menard get a car at P1 if Patrick can get the job done for him.
You know, I like Charlie Kimball as a driver. I like him as a person. He's very, very personable. Obviously, he is the only IndyCar driver who has diabetes. That's a big cause of his as well. But Charlie Kimball, he's with Carlin Motorsport driving the Chevrolet. I've not seen a lot of fireworks from him this year. He's just kind of been there, and that's kind of how I felt about him this week. He's just kind of been there. He just kind of showed up. I think he'll get in. I think he'll be one of the 33, but he's just not lighting the world on fire. Charlie Kimball.
Kimball is good. It's Chilton that's in trouble. Charlie Kimball, believe it or not, just like Matthias Lace, could be a top 9 qualifier. He ran solid high 227s in the late yesterday. They packed up the car, and I talked to Trevor Carlin on the press this morning, and I talked to him, and I tried to get information from everyone this morning. Not people were chatty, but I asked Trevor Carlin, does Kimball have a chance? And Trevor smiled. I gave a little sly wave and said, yep. So watch out. I think along with Lace, Kimball, because of that Chevrolet engine, is another potential surprise, if not in the top 9, maybe in the top half of the field. And again, it shows you that the power shift has happened where Chevrolet has usurped the Hondas after being humbled for the last 2 years.
So let's talk a little bit about Sage Karam. Thoughts about Sage Karam? Of course, he's with Dreyer and Ryan Belt Racing. A lot of people thought that would be where Danica would end up.
You mean the high school wrestler?
The high school wrestler. Hey, here's a fun fact about Sage Karam that people may not know. Do you know what Sage Karam has in common with another huge IndyCar family?
He's from Nazareth, Pennsylvania.
He's from
Same
Nazareth.
as the Andretti.
The Andretti's, that's right. He's from the same town as Marco Andretti. Marco Andretti bought his childhood home, Marco's childhood home there in Nazareth, Pennsylvania. So they're both from Nazareth, Pennsylvania. Not that has anything to do with anything, but it's just a fun fact. And every now and then, I get these fun facts, so I like to share them. Sage Karam, what are your thoughts, sir?
Well, I thought the situation involving his teammate Hildebrand could hurt Karam, even though he denied saying that was a possibility and they had their own game plan. Struggled a little bit on his own yesterday, 225, 226, about the same place where Hildebrand was. So one of the Chevy teams that's not making much noise. I think they'll get in solidly with Karam and Hildebrand anyway, but unfortunately not quite take advantage of Chevrolet power like some of the other small fries in the Chevrolet camp are doing. So you talk about going from that sense of disappointments with the Chevrolet power. Byron Reinbold, who looked to be on the up with, buying extra cars, running a two-car team, and they are once again struggling for pace. But again, their focus is on the race. They're not necessarily going for qualifying accolades, and they never have. Focus is getting a car in the race. And keep in mind, Sage Karam has failed to finish 3 straight Indy 500s. He has not finished the race since he finished 9th as a rookie. He wants to be at the checkered flag coming up next weekend.
So speaking of Andretti's, obviously Andretti's are always filled multiple cars. One of the cars is a make good. I call it a make good. Maybe it's not a make good. Stephen Wilson. I don't have anything wrong against Stephen. He's a great kid, great driver, certainly little brother to the late Justin Wilson. And what I mean by make good, I think Andretti kind of promised him a ride because he kind of stepped aside so that Alonso Fernando could race last year. So they kind of promised him, hey, you step aside for us now. We'll treat you good next year. So next year is here. So he's in a car. Stephen Wilson. I am not saying anything bad about Stephen Wilson. I'm just saying I've been much more impressed by other Andretti drivers this week than I have Stephen. Thoughts?
I disagree with you. He is just as fast as his teammate without an 8 of a draft yesterday. He was easily running 227s, 226s, right with his teammates. You talk about another potential surprise. You look at my grid tallies this. I believe I had Stephen Wilson in row 5, and that's for a reason. I think he is just as lethal of a threat to possibly get in there as any of his teammates in the Andretti Autosport. And considering we had him at the low end of the totem pole coming into this month, that's quite an accomplishment, considering he hasn't driven a competitive race here in 2 years.
Yeah, here's the thing, though, about Stephen, and you're right, we had him on the low end of things, and maybe that's why I've kind of kept him, because he's been able to get to – so let me say it like this, and maybe I'm just giving an opinion here. I won't say anybody because I couldn't do it, but so I'm saying anybody for the purposes of just saying any driver. Any driver can hit 225, 226, 227 at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway if they're good enough to drive an Indy car. Anybody can do that. My thing is with Stephen is I noticed when we had open practice this week and we had everybody out there, he was having a hard time dealing with traffic. And it seemed like he was coming to – because I hung around the Andretti pit boxes quite a bit, and it seemed like he was coming into the pits a lot. It seemed like they were talking a lot to him. It seemed like they were giving him a lot of instructions. So, granted, he's got those speeds. I'm not taking that away from him, but it just seems like he's been getting a lot of instructions this week. So it tells me that behind the scenes there might be something going on that they're not comfortable with at this point. So I'm not comfortable with saying that he's going to be in the top 9. At least at the moment. Go ahead.
That's Russ. That's Russ. Again, not being, like I said, he hasn't been in a car in 2 years. So the place where he will do the damage is qualifying. Now, obviously, he's going to have to do some work on Monday to get used to getting ready for traffic. But qualifying-wise, I think he could still maybe feel accolades today.
Hey, Rick, don't you have a saying for kicking rust off the bucket, kicking rust off the ring off the rust bucket? What's your saying?
You got to shake off the ring rust.
Shake off the ring rust. So that's what they're doing there. Okay, that makes a lot. Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, I was just saying that just means if you ain't done something in a while, you have to get back into it. You got to shake off the ring rust.
I got you. I know the feeling. Okay, that makes a lot of sense then. Okay, good to know. So they're shaking off the ring rust. That's a good insight there. Thanks, Matt. So teammate Zach Veach certainly had an opportunity to watch him. You can't miss him. He's a bright orange car, bright orange suit. So you can't miss Zach Veach out at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
He's the one that's been the disappointment, though, for the Andretti. Andretti team as far as finding pace. I think he's been the slowest on the non-tow list each of the days for Andretti. You look at the situations right now. Obviously, he had to fight, scratch just to get this ride with, the support from Group 1001 and Relay. But so far, Zach Veach, whether it's getting used to a brand new car or a more competitive car, whatever the case is, he has been a little gun shy this week. And keep in mind, he crashed last year, really didn't get a chance to get himself acclimated well with the month of May procedures. Maybe he's still at square one. And interestingly enough, I thought if there was going to be, like you said, if there's going to be a guy at Andretti that would struggle, it would be Stephen Wilson, not Zach Veach.
So Alexander Rossi obviously won the 100s running of the Indianapolis 500 out there in his Napa machine. I like him. I like this kid. I had a chance to talk with him yesterday. He interacts well with the fans. He seems to really get it. He seems to really understand what's going on out there at the track. Alexander Rossi.
Remember at the start of the week for Criticology where I had Alexander Rossi, I had him number one. The problem is not talent for Alexander Rossi. The problem is his car just doesn't have the pace to get him all the way to keep him at number one. That's why I put him in row 3 on my final projection last night. It's not that this team has forgotten how to set up a car. It's the fact of the matter is doing all the legwork and all the stuff and putting it all together. Penske and some of these other Chevrolet Camp teams have done that. Somewhere along the way, Andretti has left, and Honda has left a few loopholes open, and that's why they're down the list and why the Chevys are at the top of it. So it's nothing there. I think you'll see Rossi be a factor more on race day than today. He may stick into the top 9, but I think if you're looking for damage for Andretti, it's not going to be today. It's going to be next weekend.
You know, I was watching in the pit boxes. Like I said, I spent a lot of time in the Andretti pit boxes this week. And right behind Alexander Rossi is Ryan Hunter-Reay. And I noticed they were sitting in the pit boxes together waiting for practice. And Alexander Rossi was in his car, and Ryan Hunter-Reay comes over and was talking to him and, patting him on the helmet and giving him high fives. So they're doing well together as a team. Ryan Hunter-Reay, though, always does well in – let's say always does well because he's obviously won here in Indianapolis. He knows what it's like to be here in Indianapolis. He's a vet here in Indianapolis. If you're going to get some coaching tips from an Andretti teammate, Ryan Hunter-Reay would be the one. What are your thoughts on Ryan Hunter-Reay this year for the 102nd running of the Indianapolis 500?
Great racer, not so great a qualifier. I think 3 of the last 4 years he's not made the top 9. And remember, he ended up then goes in the consolation phase last year and then runs a 231.4 and only qualifies 10th because he didn't make the shootout. It's about putting it all together right now. And unfortunately, in this case, if there's an excuse this year, it's not his fault. Like I said with Rossi and the other Andretti cars, they just, I don't believe, have enough pace to get them into the top 9 where they could, or even if they do get to the top 9, do they have enough to upserve the Penske's?
See, my thought was on talking about the Andretti's in the top 9. I would think Carlos Munoz could at least be right there. It seems like he's had some good speeds. It seems like he's doing well. I would have picked him above any of them to be in the top 9 for Andretti. What do you think about Carlos Munoz?
Munoz has had to drive that car super aggressively because, like I said, the speed has not been there. I think he's only been able to get to 226, 225. I mean, no one drives it lower into the corners than he does. He was scraping the gray curbs on the inside of all 4 corners yesterday. That's how much he's struggling for pace. I mean, if he's having to drive it that aggressively, I think that tells you the story that he's trying to shorten up the course as much as possible because he knows down the straightaways the car just can't cut it.
We're talking with Matthew-Embury, who's live out at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I'm here at the Balance Studios, and our executive producer, Rick-Riggin, is managing the War Room. Follow us on Twitter at @TBalance. Follow Matthew at Matthew-Embury as well. This is our Bump Day special, and certainly after tomorrow, we're going to have a field of 33. Next week is the day before the race. It's hard to believe that it's here already. And so Matthew and I will be definitely breaking down the field of 33. We'll know what they'll be at. We'll know who the poll is going to be, the P1, P2, P3. We'll be able to break down where we think drivers will end up at. We'll be making our official IndyCar Indy 500 pick next week. So a lot of exciting times out at the track, and I'm so glad that I've been able to be out there all week long. And hopefully you followed us on social media and